All right, hello everyone. Let's get into it. Emma is at Grandma's today, so hopefully I can go a little over the half-hour mark. So I was taking a look actually at these CLI tasks, and basically these are all of the tasks that are inside of the Shift Workbench currently. And some of them are a bit outdated. Actually reviewing these was a good opportunity to kind of see what doesn't even make any sense anymore, right? There's some stuff here like back from like Laravel 5.7, for example, like converting the old string functions. The Workbench doesn't even support anything prior to 6. Here pretty soon it's not going to support anything prior to the latest version, which is Laravel 10. So as such, I was probably able to get rid of about half of these. In addition, some of the Workbench tasks were backed by Rector, some of the free tasks that did like property promotion, using read-only, things like that, new features in PHP 8. So a lot of the PHP-specific tasks were really just wrapped Rector and kind of gave that a cleaner experience and some easy defaults, so you didn't have to go make these like crazy config files to run Rectors. But as Rector has gotten a little more popular and hopefully a little easier to use, it doesn't really make sense for the Workbench, especially as a CLI version, to wrap those any longer. So I got rid of all those. Basically, here's the point. Here's what's left. All of these, which is still a pretty good amount, and I actually got some ideas for some new ones too. But the point here is that I want to start bringing these over into the Shift CLI. So again, the Shift CLI is a good opportunity for me to get rid of the Workbench desktop app. They'll still be the cloud-based version, but they need to have the same set of tasks. So these are the tasks I want to move over to the CLI. I'm trying to figure out, here's kind of the dilemma, if you will, or the challenge. The CLI is going to be an installed tool, much like Pint. And as such, I mean, any other package, you can get into the vendor folder and start looking around in the code. Generally speaking, I don't really have a big problem with that. What I'm more interested in is personally, how do I manage the tasks that are part of Shift and its code base, and then the tasks that are part of the Shift CLI. They have two different functions, and as such, it doesn't make sense, like the two different UIs, if you will. One's a Laravel 0 application, one's kind of a standalone set of PHP scripts, is framework agnostic, no framework. So, kind of like Laravel has these underlying Illuminate packages that kind of get subtree splitted out. How fancy do I want to get about sharing the code between the two? So I've been thinking about that for the last day or two. Let's just kind of take a peek. Let's get into the code and take a look at this. So the one I want to start with today and work on is pretty straightforward. I think it was like this declare strict types. So this is basically like adding strict types to all your PHP files. Pretty straightforward thing. Again, this is a task that exists in the Workbench. So if we just go take a look at like this task factory, this is in the Shift code base, not the CLI, the Shift code base. So if we go down here to strict types somewhere, there they are, strict types. Here's the strict types task. And basically, this is what happens. And again, here's the difference between the tasks, and we'll see this when we go back. Again, the UX, the experience, the use case for these tasks are much different between Shift. The perform segment is the same, but kind of the way in which the task is performed and how it's handled is going to be different. Again, a prime example of that right here, commit. That's part of Shift. Shift's interface is to create a PR, make atomic commits, leave comments. The UI is not going to be that way. Theoretically, you're running the UI just on a set of code. You don't want to commit it. You just want it to happen. Now, of course, there's flags I could do to disable it, to see like what environment I'm running in and all that crap. But again, if we get down to the perform section, which is what it does, even this we can start to look at. If you've watched some of the previous streams, there's no reason for me to find in files, right? Because on the CLI, you're either passing the files in or you want it to run on your whole project based on the configuration file, which we worked on last time. So here, this is gone. So again, there's starting to be these like segments of code that, even though these are ultimately going to do the same thing, now I basically have to say something like, if, environment is like, CLI or something, like, find the paths, and I'm going to have all these like logical twists and turns, or I'm going to have like a crazy number of subclasses where it's like one's the subclass for the CLI task and the other's the main task, and yeah, they share some code, but like I've bloated the code base by, double the number of classes, right? Maybe even triple if you start to, talk about interfaces and crap. Yeah, so you can already pick up on my sentiment about this. I just don't think I'm going to share. I don't think I'm going to share the code is the point. And not meaning not in the vendor folder. Again, I'm not worried about like that aspect. Right now, I don't think it's that big of a deal that the lines which are within perform, what is this? Lines 30 to 61. So 25 lines of code. I'm not too worried about duplicating those. In most cases, the code between these two is pretty straightforward. And again, the only way for me to truly share this would be to abstract kind of just this section. And then I would also have to be real mindful about using things that are underlying shared, right? Like Shift. I have this Shift facade inside the Shift code base that kind of wraps a lot of system things, makes it a little easier to test. It's just a facade. But instead of calling like get file contents, the PHP function, I wrap it, just like file does in a Laravel application. You kind of wrap file get and, file put or read and write. It just allows me to kind of hook in and test some of these things a little bit easier. So again, this is just kind of a quick example. Not every task is this succinct. Some tasks use finders and not regular expressions. So again, there are some shared classes. Maybe I will be, maybe I'll change my mind on this. But I think for now, I'm going to start building these. There's actually another piece of this, but let me finish the thought here. I'm going to start building these kind of replicated in the system instead of sharing the code base from Shift directly. Now, here's the caveat. The Shift Workbench has premium tasks. Premium tasks meaning those that subscribers or someone with a license has access to. These are actually these bottom ones. Those are a little different. Those would have to be included, based on your license key. You would much like Nova or something, you would add it as a dependency to your project, but you need, an API key or a license key that you plug into your Composer auth credentials, and it's going to pull that additional set of tasks down. There might be an opportunity to share those because, again, those would truly be copied from, the Shift code base in a way. So, but again, even those, I don't know, a nice little programming challenge. The whole point here is Yagni. I'm going to live with the duplication. Rule of 3. Right now I don't have strict types tasks in multiple places. It's just this one place. Right now I'm just going to copy the code. I'm going to see what it looks like, see where the pain points are. And as I learn building multiple tasks, replicating them into the CLI, I'll get a feel for maybe some ways in which I might be able to share this code. So again, for now, I'll just kind of copy and compare, but we'll kind of see how this all looks. So I think for today, what let's do is let's just copy a task. We'll build one fresh because I haven't really done that on a stream yet. I've done it in the Laracast series, but if you haven't seen that, let's kind of make that happen, right? Cool. All right. Hey, Bernard, how's it going? Adrian, Mark, what's up? Plugin system. Yeah, this actually, and that's a good point, plugin system. Shift will definitely leverage a plugin system, and as we go to register this new task, you'll kind of see that in action. Again, I go in depth on that in the Laircast series. But yes, you can already add tasks. So what's nice about this over the Workbench is it opens up for anyone to make a task. So it doesn't have to just be Shift tasks. So if people want to create free tasks out there, they could already kind of plug that in. So Shift is really just going to leverage that as well for like the premium tasks, for example. But out of the box, the Shift CLI will come with a set of tasks. So I think here's the default tasks, for example, check lint, debug calls, format code, order model, blah, blah, blah. So we're just going to start adding more and more here. So was wondering what would happen with the premium tasks in the new CLI. Yeah, so hopefully this is a drop-in replacement for the Workbench. And I think that benefits all sides. That benefits me from not having to manage a completely new tech stack. In this case, for me, I have to manage Electron. I have to manage the deployment of an Electron app as a native desktop application. That means I have to have licenses with Apple to digitally sign, the app. That costs me not a lot, but that's $100 a month or something. The deployment of it, through S3, all that kind of stuff to be able to download that DMG. There's just a lot of steps. Not only again having to know the Electron code base, making this then as a user you have to have Docker, blah 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 to kind of build out that backend. A lot of the issues with the Workbench aren't with the code or the automation itself. It's normally with the system and the install, notably Docker. So yeah, I think it was a good first attempt, but we've come full circle and it just makes sense to go back to the CLI. Again, at that point, everything's PHP. That's nice on me. It's nice on you. You have your system running. And if I always support the latest version, then there shouldn't be too many issues with that. So. All right, getting back to the tasks, what happens here, just kind of, again, if you haven't seen the Laircast series, what happens in this task manifest is it basically goes in, much like auto discovery for Laravel packages, this will actually go in and look through your vendor folder, your installed packages, and basically see if they have an extra Shift task. So much like a Laravel package has a Laravel and then its package name inside of that of additional service providers, which it loads. This is doing the same thing. It's going to say extra in your composer file, shifts. So if you want to make tasks that are automatically loaded by the Shift CLI, you just make a normal PHP package, you throw extra in your composer JSON, you register those tasks just like I do down here, and they'll automatically get picked up and merged with the default tasks that Shift gives you. So yeah, this is already going to be open to everyone to build their own tasks and potentially even paid tasks, So again, that's exactly how the premium tasks will work. It'll just be like a, Shift CLI premium tasks, right? And you would just register it like you do Nova or Spark or whatever else, and that's it. But for today, let's just say something like declare strict. I like kind of making these like verb noun. So we'll call this declare strict, and we'll just say app tasks declare strict types class. And that's as simple as that. You just register it like you would a facade and Laravel or whatever. So let's go create this class. Should do all that right. And then I think, let's paste this in here. We're gonna have some issues, of course, because those don't line up the same. Let's see, do I extend it? I don't have any kind of base class here. So again, see, I'm already have like a bit of a different structure. So if we just kind of look at this, we've got this find files and nothing that we're kind of leveraging otherwise. So let's get rid of this declare strict types. Let's put this under app, nope, tasks, there it is. None of this shift namespace stuff is going to be there. We're not extending tasks. We're going to call this rename class to declare strict types. We're going to use find files. We're not going to have additional paths, which means we get rid of our constructor. We're not committing anything, which means we get rid of that. Perform we will keep. And now, again, we're back to kind of the basics of what we had before. So if we go look at debug calls, we kind of have this find files that probably shouldn't be an exit. That probably shouldn't be exit. We'll come back to that later. I think this is it supposed to return void? Oh man, let's go back up to the run command. I think there's some leftover stuff from the Laracast series that might be a bit wrong. Here we go. Create task. Okay, perform result. This should return. See, here's another difference. The perform of a CLI task returns kind of the error code in a way. So it returns an int effectively. So here, let's change this to int. And let's change this to int. So this is some cleanup that's going to need to happen later. So here we would just return 0 because, you know, it ran fine. Might change that to a bool, but maybe you need to return a special code someday. Who knows? Okay. So we return 0 if it doesn't find any files. Again, we didn't need that code that was from Shift where it just searched your whole project. So now let's kind of get to it here. I guess we're calling this files, and let's change this with PHP Storm. We'll call this file. Awesome. So if it ends with blade.php, because it potentially found all PHP files, it would just continue. That's fine. That makes sense. Okay, so we don't have this, so we'll just say get file, or file get contents. I always get that backwards. Hence the wrapper. Okay, so we'll change that to the native function. The preg match should all be the same. If found, all right, so we string replace. All right, let's import illuminates string class. Nice. And finally, we would just put file contents, or file put contents. There we go. And it looks like I have a stray something here. Oh, okay. Return 0. All right. Cool. Well, yeah, there you go. It was that easy. I think we just brought it across. How could we test this? We could run it against our own project and see if it added declare strict types. Yeah, why not? Let's go back to Shift CLI. Let's see what we've done here. Okay, so we've we've changed that return type to be an int. Okay, that's fine. We've registered the declare strict types task that we've brought over. Everything else is new. So let's just bring in that app tasks. And I'm going to go ahead and run pint against this just to make sure it's all good. Cool. Git commit -m. So we'll say declare strict types task. Or well, let's start having a format here. We'll say task : oh my goodness, declare strict types. There we go, cool. All right, and then to run this, let's go ahead and push this up. To run this, we would do PHP Shift CLI run, and then we should be able to say declare strict task. Not, what did I call this? Declare strict. Oh, yeah, yeah, there's a manifest file. Aha. Look at this, fanciness. I actually cache this file and it puts one out. There it is. So let's kill this file. Kind of like the auto load. That was a discover command. So actually, technically what I should have done is discover. So again, much like there is a Laravel, auto discover task that's in Artisan, this has the same thing, a discover. So if you were to install a package that had Shift CLI tasks, you could run discover and get around that cache folder. Okay, so if we go back up to run declare strict, look at this, great. So if we do a git diff-w, we should see that, yeah, at the top of every PHP file here, we now have the declare strict types. So there you go, easy as that. There's a new task ported over from the workbench. Yeah, so let's nah that. Okay, before moving on, we'll maybe do one more task since that was pretty quick. Let's clean up. Let's look at the tasks that we have and clean up some of that return exit stuff, because that seemed incorrect. So what I'm going to do first is take a look for exit inside of there. Yeah, okay, so format code. Let's just open all those in a fine window. All right, this should not be exit. This is just return 0. So let me just copy that so I have it for the future. There's exit code. That's fine. False positive. Exit code, all good. Yeah, okay. Exit. So anywhere where it's just returning that, we shouldn't have it. Okay, here, a little bit different. Here on format code, we would probably just want to return exit code. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and change, well, I can change that with an extended replace. All right, that should fix that. Nice. So yeah, it seems like order model was like halfway correct. All right, the next thing I would want to do is let's replace all of that with an int. Okay. And then finally, okay, we are returning there. That's good. So check length's good. Let's check debug calls. Any other, there's the return. Nice. Okay, so I think that just exit where there was no files was just kind of wrong. Okay, here int perform, we're doing pint. Exit code, great. And then declare script types, we just wrote this ourselves, so we know that's good. Order model, let's check this. So order model int, return 0, loops over stuff, continue, 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 return 0. Okay, so that kind of can never fail. Some of these can never fail, but that's fine. Okay, so I think we fixed that. I'll just check this out one more time. Okay, so we added the new return type. We're returning 0, added the new return type, returning 0. We're properly returning the exit code instead of just exiting with it. Got the type hint, same thing. Okay, cool. So that just kind of normalizes that. That was left over from the Laracast series before I kind of started to open source this. So let's do a git commit -m, or well, let's run pint. Let's do a git commit -m, return exit codes from tasks. All right. Push that up. Okay, let's bring over, well, first of all, let's turn this into a little checkbox. So kaboom, not now. Okay, what else could I pull over? I'm open in the chat. If you see one in here that you'd like to use in your own projects in the Shift CLI, if you happen to be already trying out this thing in alpha, let me know. I'll do that one next. But otherwise, I'm going to kind of scroll through here myself and see which one of these are the free tasks. I'm going to see which one of these maybe makes sense. Just trying to think of like what's the most bang for the buck. I feel like the I'm kind of leaning towards the remove doc block. I'm leaning towards the remove doc block. I don't know how involved that is though. Let's go find out. If you have one that you think you'd like to see, let me know in the chat. Otherwise, let me go take a peek at this remove doc block. It's funny that I have declare strict types there. It's kind of cracking me up. All right, I think remove all doc blocks is a rector. Yes, it is. But that's not really an issue because again, I'm not copying these over anyway. And I know I do this on my own. I'm thinking here. I know I do this on my own in Laravel 10. The Laravel 10 shift has a type remove doc blocks, yeah. Now, this is remove redundant typing, so it analyzes the doc blocks, but here's kind of the catch. Two things are the catch here. One, this only looks at classes. Technically, if you go into like, I have like a helper class. I think if I get in here somewhere, I mean, you can have doc blocks on it. You can have doc blocks anywhere. You can have doc blocks on like a function here, right? Like there's no rule against that. So you'd kind of have to like parse every PHP file. What I'm trying to figure out though is, does Nikic parser parse a doc block? I don't know if it does or not. That's kind of the catch. So again, because this uses rector and because areas where I do use remove doc block are very specific to that upgrade task, in this case Laravel 10 removing redundant typing, there's nothing to really copy from here. So what I want to do is go into the finders, the parsers and finders that exist in Nikic parser. I use this in the order model. What I'm curious about is, does it have a node? I'm just kind of playing around here. If node instance of, does it have like a doc block node? No. Does it have like a comment node? PHP parser comment doc. PHP parser comment doc. What's this? Comment. Construct a comment node. The thing is, that's not really a node. It's just kind of like a floating comment. Hold on. I think if you go down, get comments. There's somewhere where it has what you kind of need on it. This is a method. I'm trying to remember what these are called. I think they're called like class method, maybe. Class method, yeah, there it is. Node statement, class method. Let's see. Statements. Yeah, this is kind of node get comments. Yeah, there it is. So get comments. What's the get doc comment? Null or comment doc? Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to determine with Nikic parser, when you run a finder, you normally have to tell it the node that you're after. But the point here is that I think Nikic parser attaches a comment to a node instead of parses it directly. That's one of the caveats with Nikic parser. Is much like PHP, when it's executed or ran, it doesn't even look at comments. They're considered white space. They're just stripped out. when it's actually interpreted. So Nikic parser does the same thing. So there's no, as it's analyzing the code, it just completely skips over a comment. But what it does is it goes back and backfills that comment and attaches it to a node in certain cases, in the case of a doc block. So the point I'm making is that if we go back to kind of this class definition finder in your search over the nodes as it's iterating over the abstract syntax tree, you say, hey, if you see a node of type class, I want to know about it. That's great. The problem is I don't think there's like a node, doc block is what I'm getting at. And I wish that there was. Because if there was, then I would just do this. I would scan all your PHP files, parse them, find the doc blocks, remove them. Very straightforward. But I think what's going to happen instead is you would kind of have to you'd have to do one of two things. You could either do this with a super nasty regular expression, anywhere it found what was considered a doc block. But some people write comments in doc block format that aren't technically doc blocks, right? So some people might just do something like, here is a class. Now, kind of the caveat, or I guess the argument here is that this is in doc block notation, if you will, but it doesn't contain any of the meta information that you would typically see in a doc block. So, does Shift remove that, or does it not? I don't know. I don't know if it does or doesn't. That's kind of what I'm debating. So, technically that's a doc block. It would parse as a doc block. It would be attached to the class definition from a Nikic parser standpoint. But I would have to know to go look at classes, methods, functions, and if they were quote unquote top level, then consider it a doc block if Nikic parser did. That seems like a lot of work. Whereas if I just kind of searched for this, it would be a pretty straightforward regular expression, but it might get some instances that you maybe want to keep that comment because you're looking at it as a comment, not a doc block. I don't know. Interesting. Anyway, let's go ahead and register this in the task manifest. So let's go down here. We'll say remove that noun or that verb noun. So we'll say remove doc blocks. Say remove doc blocks. Let's, what's wrong with you? Create the class. All right. Remove it. You should expect that a doc block is a doc block, and they should see that in their PRs they are creating. If you want to keep, just use. Yeah. No, I'm in agreement with you, Bernard. I think if you're in that format, whether you meant to or not, plus you have to think of the context. You're kind of already in the state of like remove doc blocks, like remove code comments. So you're kind of already in that mindset. So I don't think you're going to be that annoyed if it gets something that maybe you didn't mean it for it to be a doc block, because you're already in the state of like removal, right? So yeah, I think it's totally fine to probably remove it. And I think in that case, I would probably lean towards probably just a simple regex. So yeah, let's look at perform. We know from last time it's an int. We can do the same thing that we did before. And again, this is why I think so far, again, this is all going to change, but I think so far this is a pretty good, to me, this is proof that not copying the code from Shift is the right approach, because there's potentially nuance, again, in the context in which you're running these tasks, right? You're running these tasks, from the perspective of a CLI, kind of in isolation, not committing them. There's just enough differences that it would be more effort for me to try to share this code, and I'm harping on it because I think a lot of developers would take days, if not weeks, to go and make the Shift code base quote unquote reusable, right? Package it up in some way so it could be shared and then you could tap into it. But I guarantee you, if you did that, you're going to write a lot of abstraction code that really ends up not being worth it, because everything's going to have a bunch of if checks, because we already saw the differences. You know, in Shift, I might have gone and built a parser, but like, because I need that level of, you know, certainty when I'm messing with your application or inspecting it, because I'm looking at the types and all that kind of stuff, right? But here, I can get away with a regex because, you know, there's a very set format for that, and we're in the context of removing it, right? So anyway, cool. All right, and again, we'll probably just end up returning 0 here as well. Pretty straightforward stuff. Okay, so what do we want to do here? We basically want to loop over file and determine if it contains a doc block, any doc blocks, right? It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so let's do it. Let's make it real. So for each files as file, let's get the contents. File get this isn't super efficient now that I'm thinking about it. So let's bring in file contents, and we just basically do a preg replace because we're just hard killing it. Looks like Adrian potentially has a pattern here. GitHub Copilot. That is not right whatsoever. All right. Contents. And we would have, what would we have here? I guess we would just put it right back out. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. File put contents, file contents, right? Did I get that right? I always, yeah, file name. Okay, cool. All right. The duck. Okay, so a couple things. This would definitely be multi-line. So what we have to have is you have to be at the start of a line, and you would basically have to have a space or a tab character, right? So you can have one or more of those, but that's the only thing that could be at the beginning of that line. And then you would have to have a slash and a star and a star. Like absolutely have to have that. And then you would have to have, well, I guess you don't put anything on the top line, right? So you know at that point that you have a /r followed by more space. So we could really just say space. You have to have space characters, and then you would have another slash. And at that point, you kind of just start to have anything until you reach that kind of closing // right? And that's kind of at the end of that line. Yeah, you would have like a /r plus. Whoops, sorry. We're getting ahead of ourselves here. You would have like a /r. Okay. This is the basic structure of it, but this middle piece here is going to need some love. Is that what it looks like? Let me just make sure here. Oh, there's a single one here. Okay, there's just a single one. So let's get rid of that. So it's very strict in that capacity. Now this portion's kind of what I care about. Again, you would have to have a space or a tab, and at this point you would have to have one or more of those. because it's the indentation for that line. But you have to, you have to leave a little bit of rope for this other bit here. And I think we could say you have to have multiple of those, and then this would be anything that's not, I don't need to capture any of this in honesty, anything that's not a /r. What's wrong with you, /r? Illegal, unsupported. Can you not do that? Oh, I don't think you can use compound character classes inside of that. I think you'd have to say like /r/n, basically. Okay. I think this would work. I think this works. Let's do this. Let's go out to Chrome. My favorite tool when messing with a regex. You know how to write regex. Yeah, I'm old. I did. My first programming language was Perl. And if you're at all familiar with Perl, you know that it's a bunch of line noise. And yeah, if you're writing Perl, you're basically writing regular expressions all the time anyway. So long story short, I had to learn them. I wrote Perl, what, 25 years ago now? So I've had 25 years of practice with regex. Now this is not a headshot. This is not going to get it the very first time, but it's probably pretty close. Let's go out to Laravel Framework, because we know that they have some beautiful doc blocks. So let's get into Source Illuminate. We'll just pick some random class here. Batch repository maybe. Hey, there we go. Beautiful, beautiful doc blocks. All right, let's just copy some of this. We don't need all of it. And let's start tweaking this until it kind of does what we need it to do. Okay, so how close are we? Let's cut this out. Okay, so we're good so far. I think it's this alteration that is probably not right. So really what we're after here is that, I think. And then let's see if we're, okay, good. We're getting somewhere now. All right, so we're getting to the point where we can find the opening line. And let's just make sure we're not too crazy here. Let's borrow this for a second. And let's just, whoops, let's not indent this, just to kind of prove that it handles, it kind of handles these non-indented lines as well. Okay, I think we're working well here. Now I think we would need to support the /r. There we go. Getting farther now. Does the /r need to be included? Just thinking out loud, that puts us as a /r. We should have the space, and then you don't have to have one or more. There you go, star. So that's part of the problem. I couldn't catch that. So there, now we're getting farther. So now we need the end. And the end is basically what we said before. It's this followed by a this, and followed by the end of the line. But I think what I would want to take is that. I want to take the next piece of it. There we go. There it is. There's the regular expression. So it was pretty close. What I messed up on was empty lines. So this is a good example. This empty line here where there wasn't anything on it. I missed that. And then we need to capture the line break as part of each individual line. So that piece as well. So pretty close. I think we had it. Okay, so let's go back. Let's change this to that, and we can see here again that we picked up those extra bits there. And if we replace this with nothing, I think you can do that in regex somewhere. Where do you change it? I thought they used to have like a Thought there was somewhere in here. I got my chat up so I can't see it. I thought they had something that was like, I want to replace you. Test string. How do I scroll? Oh, substitution. Nope, nope. I don't know where it is. I was trying to see where they allowed you to replace it so we could see that it worked, but that's okay. All right, that should work as well. Bernard, what do you have here? You've got this. How can I not copy? Oh man, I guess I can't copy the chat characters. That's strange. Oh well. Yeah, I'll take your word for it. I think just looking right at what you have, some of the issue is you have to think about the replacement. That's why I wanted to kind of bring that up, but I can't find where that button is on here. But anyway, you have to think about the fact that we want to replace this, so we don't want to leave any like random white space. So I think what you have probably, yeah, would work, so long as it kind of kept going. But I want to make sure, if we look at kind of what's highlighted in blue, I want to make sure that as we were replacing this, we kind of kill all those lines. What you have would leave the indentation as well as the line break at the end. So you would kind of have a little bit of a muddled piece of code afterward. Now again, this thing has Pint. It would clean it up for you, no big deal. That's why Shift actually uses, one of the main reasons it formats your code is it just kind of helps clean up anything that it might have messed up by doing fast and loose regular expressions like that. But sometimes that's why I try to get the indentation and, you know, start of the line and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Yeah, I do think this works. There's probably some boundary cases, one of which I could think of real quick. You know, if we put a star here, you know, some people do that with a doc block. Again, PHP doc block. There are rules about doc blocks. I think, yeah, again, if you look at the anatomy, here's a single line doc block, so that is actually allowed. But we're talking about multi-line, and in their example, you know, they don't have the 2 stars there. So again, not something I support in mine. Probably the single line comment I'm not going to support either. Technically it is a doc comment. I don't know. Yeah, but basically it ends with an asterisk and /. So that's really what we're after, is this and this. It'd be very easy to adjust our code to also do a preg replace all the same line, you know, for this. So basically, yeah. Basically you have anything that's not a line break followed by that and a line break. So there you go. Yeah. That's kind of the way to go there. So yeah, this would support, that supports single line doc blocks as well right there, I think. Let's test it and then we'll call it a day. So if we go back here, plug that in, and let's turn this top class retrieval one into a single line doc block and see if it gets it. There it is. So there you go. So yeah, now we killed single line and multi-line doc blocks right there. Cool. All right. So there you go. Another task out of the bag. Again, even though this existed in Shift, we were able to rewrite it using most of the code that we had on hand. And really, it's just lines 18 through 23 here to do it, because within the context of using this in a CLI tool, we don't need a finder and all that crap. We can just get away with a kind of a deep regular expression based on the structured format of a doc block comment from the documentation. Here are the rules of what that has to be. Anytime you have some rules, you can kind of trust it's some string manipulation at that point. So cool. All right, I'll get this pushed up. I did see the comment about making a kind of task interface or something. Totally agree. I actually have one of those in Shift. There's an abstract task class which gives you some of these things by default. Again, just kind of rule of 3. You know, before these streams, I really only had a couple tasks here, so I didn't really go for it. But yes, if we go look at these, basically every single one is going to implement that perform. It's potentially going to use finds files. So let's build a few more, and I'll probably add that in the future. So, all right, everyone, thanks for joining live, sticking with me. A little longer stream today. Hopefully I'll be able to continue on next week, and we'll keep adding more and more tasks. So thanks. See y'all.